Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to Nine Nar Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book, A Return to Common Sense: How to Fix America Before We Really Blow It. By Leigh McGowan is a civic-minded call for cooling down political life and rebuilding practical problem-solving in the United States. Drawing on McGowan's public voice as a commentator focused on depolarization and democratic norms, the book argues that the country is not doomed by ideology, but damaged by incentives that reward outrage, misinformation, and tribal loyalty. It makes the case that everyday citizens can reclaim agency by demanding competence, honesty, and results from leaders at every level. Rather than treating politics as a spectator sport, McGowan frames it as community maintenance, learning how institutions work, participating consistently, and refusing to let extremes set the agenda. The book's central promise is that common sense is not a vague slogan, but a set of habits, guardrails, and expectations that can be practiced. It invites readers to move from frustration to constructive engagement, while acknowledging the real stakes of democratic backsliding and cultural division. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, Diagnosing the Crisis, Polarization, Distrust, and Incentives that Reward. Chaos, a major theme, is that America's problems are amplified by a political ecosystem designed to monetize anger. The book frames polarization less as a sudden moral failing and more as the predictable result of incentives. Media attention flows to conflict, politicians gain leverage through performative fights, and online platforms push sensational content. In that environment, trust erodes not only between parties but also between citizens and institutions, making even reasonable reforms feel impossible. McGowan emphasizes that distrust becomes self-reinforcing. When people assume bad faith, they stop listening, compromise becomes betrayal, and the loudest voices define reality. This diagnosis highlights how everyday discourse is shaped by structural forces that most people do not consciously notice, such as attention economics and primary election dynamics. The point is not to excuse harmful behavior, but to explain why it spreads so efficiently. By clarifying the machinery behind outrage, the book encourages readers to resist being manipulated and to evaluate political claims with more patience. The topic sets up the rest of the argument. Restoring common sense requires changing expectations and behaviors, not just swapping leaders. Secondly, common sense as a civic skill. Thinking clearly in a noisy information age, the book treats common sense as an active discipline rather than an instinct. In a fragmented media landscape, readers are urged to develop habits that improve judgment, slowing down before sharing claims, distinguishing evidence from commentary, and recognizing how identity can override logic. McGowan emphasizes that misinformation is not only about false facts, but also about selective framing that exaggerates threats and simplifies trade-offs. This topic focuses on rebuilding epistemic humility, the willingness to update beliefs, and the ability to hold complexity without retreating into cynicism. It also addresses the emotional side of information. Outrage feels energizing, certainty feels comforting, and belonging can matter more than accuracy. A practical common-sense approach involves checking sources, seeking context, and listening to people who disagree without surrendering core values. The book argues that democracy depends on a minimum shared reality, and citizens help create that reality by what they reward with attention. The goal is not to become a policy expert on everything, but to become reliably harder to fool. Over time, that steadier mindset reduces fear-based politics and makes room for realistic solutions. Thirdly, restoring democratic norms, guardrails, accountability, and institutional repair. Another central topic is the health of democratic norms and the need to reinforce guardrails that protect fair competition and peaceful transitions of power. The book highlights that institutions are only as strong as the public expectations around them. When leaders attack election integrity, normalize threats, or treat rules as optional, the damage outlasts any single news cycle. McGowan argues for accountability as a nonpartisan necessity. The same standards should apply regardless of team identity. This section emphasizes the difference between policy disagreements and democratic breaches, urging readers to prioritize the systems that allow disagreements to be resolved legitimately. It also underscores that institutional repair is not abstract. It shows up in support for ethical governance, respect for independent oversight, and civic pressure against corruption or intimidation. The book points readers toward participation that reinforces legitimacy, such as voting consistently, understanding local offices, and supporting reforms that improve transparency. By centering norms, it reframes political engagement away from winning at all costs and toward maintaining a functioning republic. The underlying message is that democracy is not self-sustaining. It requires upkeep by citizens who care about rules even when outcomes disappoint them. Fourthly, from culture war to practical policy, choosing results over performative conflict. The book argues that many headline battles are designed to inflame identity conflicts while distracting from solvable governance challenges. McGowan encourages readers to separate symbolic fights from issues where policy can measurably improve lives. Common sense politics means asking basic questions. What problem are we trying to solve? What evidence supports the proposed fix? What are the costs? And how will we know if it worked? This topic highlights the value of pragmatic compromise, not as moral surrender, but as the ordinary method of pluralistic societies. It also recognizes that some disagreements are rooted in values, yet even values-based debates benefit from clarity about trade-offs and consequences. The book pushes back against the idea that politics must always feel like crisis mode. When everything is treated as existential, governing becomes impossible and trust collapses further. By focusing on results, citizens can reward leaders who deliver improvements rather than those who simply generate viral moments. The theme is especially relevant to local and state governance, where practical outcomes are often clearer and collaboration is more feasible. The broader claim is that reducing performative conflict creates space for competent administration and more durable progress. Lastly, Citizen Agency, How Ordinary People Can Lower the Temperature and Raise the Standards, A Return to Common Sense, emphasizes that the most important lever is not a single election, but sustained citizen behavior. McGowan frames civic engagement as a set of manageable actions that compound over time, showing up in primaries, paying attention to school boards and state legislatures, supporting trustworthy local journalism, and rewarding leaders who tell the truth even when it is unpopular. The book argues that extremes often win because moderates disengage, leaving motivated minorities to dominate low-turnout contests. Restoring balance therefore requires consistent participation and social courage, including calling out misinformation within one's own community. This topic also focuses on communication, lowering the temperature in daily conversations, refusing dehumanizing language, and modeling curiosity. McGowan suggests that people can be firm about principles while still treating neighbors as human beings. The aim is to rebuild the social fabric that makes compromise possible. The book also stresses that personal boundaries matter, since burnout fuels apathy. Sustainable engagement means choosing a lane, contributing where you have influence, and accepting that progress is incremental. Ultimately, the message is empowering. Common sense is contagious when citizens practice it publicly and make it politically rewarding. In conclusion, this book is best for readers who feel exhausted by partisan theater but still care deeply about the future of American democracy. If you are looking for a framework to understand why politics feels so dysfunctional, plus guidance on how to respond without becoming cynical, McGowan offers a practical, citizen-centered approach. The biggest life benefit is psychological as well as civic. By replacing constant outrage with clearer thinking and purposeful engagement, readers can regain a sense of agency and reduce the stress of doom scrolling. The book also helps readers become more effective participants in community life, whether through voting habits, local involvement, or healthier conversations with family and coworkers. Compared to many political books that focus narrowly on one party, one election, or one policy agenda, this one is positioned as a broader reset. Its value is in emphasizing norms, incentives, and everyday behavior changes that apply regardless of your preferred candidates. It is worth buying if you want a roadmap for staying informed without being manipulated, and for supporting democracy with consistent, common-sense actions rather than occasional bursts of anger. Readers seeking actionable civic clarity will find it a grounded alternative to both fatalism and ideology-driven manifestos. If you would like to support Leigh McGowan, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.